Hello everyone, welcome to my review of the Cayin RU7 discrete 1-bit DAC dongle. Well, it's a DAC AM dongle, and it's a very interesting device. This is Cayin's latest creation. Very excited about it. I mean, they've been very good at sort of like affecting trickle-down technologies from their higher-end devices. So this is basically a result of a trickle-down technology from their latest DAP, which is the Cayin N7. The N7 is not their flagship DAP. This one is the N8 Mark II. But I've had the privilege of trying the N7, and it was fantastic for the price of $2,000. And now you get the same 1-bit technology here in this very diminutive device. So what is this device? I'll quickly run through its specs, guys. I talk about its power output, its drivability, because those can be interesting. I'll talk about what this comes with in terms of its boxing and unboxing. And then I'll talk about sound with a variety of IMs, the Odins, which are very low impedance, the Noble Audio Sultans, which I like a lot, and of course the Kinera Norns that are here that I've also reviewed on this channel. I'll draw sort of like very quick comparisons in terms of sound, so you get a sense of what this sounds like vis-a-vis the Low2 PAW S2, the Aroma Air Bluetooth sort of DAC amp, and of course the mother of all sort of Cayin devices, the N8 Mark II. So with that, let's just jump into specs. This is a fully balanced 1-bit discrete resistor network DAC. So this is able to natively decode DSD 64, 128, 256, and supports PCM up to 384 kilohertz. So this is something where users can select and specify whether you want DSD 64 or 128 or 256 through a menu setting, which is quite convenient, and this OLED is just wonderful. All these three sample rates will sound different, guys. DSD64 here sounds different, and these differences are more acute in listening than was the case with the Cayin N7, in case that matters to you. 64 sounds warm, whereas 256 sounds incisive, and the treble can sound very alive. Okay. So this also has a 100-step 3-segment high-precision resistor array volume control. The volume control is right here, plus and minus. In terms of its output power, the 3.5 here outputs about 160 milliwatts per channel at 32 ohms. The 4.4 is very powerful at 400 milliwatt per channel at 32 ohms. 400 milliwatt can drive most headphones, guys. Okay, this is compatible with Android, iOS, Mac OS, Windows 7, 8, and various versions of Windows OS systems, and DAPs with USB audio output. This is high and low gain control, which you can also control with the OLED once you enter the menu, which you do by pressing on mode here for a little bit of time. Very light, 25 grams net weight, and this green leather case, which is very pretty. It won't even come out that easily, as you can see, is provided with the device, which is extremely welcome. Tight fit. This is what the actual device looks like. A nice glass finish, contours here. And yeah, of course, this comes with this USB to USB, USB-C to USB cable. You can, of course, get an optional USB-C to Lightning cable. You can get it separately. I think it's called CS L2C. Okay. Guys, this concept of this sort of a 1-bit DSD DAC design is not new and has been around in higher-end sort of devices like CD players, SACD players, and DVD players. This is, of course, the first time, Cayin or anyone has introduced this in a dongle form, which is why this is so exciting. But just so you know that this all-discrete design and DSD upsampling will require more current draw from your source's battery than is the case with most other dongles. Like this does not have as much current draw as the RU7. And the RU7 has a lot of current draw, guys, and I'll talk about that. It's not much of an issue if you're using your Windows PC or laptop or MacBook or even your iPad. Like I've been using my iPad with the RU7, and it's just a phenomenal experience with my iPad. I also like this iPad as a source because I feel like it's slightly warmer than my iPhone. And guys, I'm not making this up. Sources do matter. If you cannot hear differences between your iPad or iPhone as a source, that's fine. All power to you. But I definitely hear differences, even in my TWS earbuds. So that's not a debate I want to get into right now, but all I want to say is that this sort of device is perfect with, or your PC with the RU7, or an Android phone, because Android phones tend to not be current limited. But before I talk about what else comes with it, maybe I'll just continue on this sort of, power drivability thing. So with the smartphone, there's a higher drain, right? Especially when you go up from DSD64 to DSD128 and all the way to DSD256. As a matter of fact, in DSD64, this will be drawing 170 milliamperes, but when you go up to 256, you are drawing 230 milliamperes. And Android phones do not have a limitation of sort of current draw with ODG connected devices, but iPhones do. So you might not have the best results if you drive something that's difficult to drive with your iPhone. So smartphones, Android phones are recommended with this, but more so like larger devices like, tablet PCs or laptop even. You can use an iPhone with this, but you have to have a workaround, which Twister 6 has very beautifully illustrated in his written review. And I will drop a link to his review because it is one of his best reviews, and I really enjoyed that review. So the workaround, if you want to use this with an iPhone, is that you have to get a DD Hi-Fi TC281 Pro Lightning or a TC28C Pro USB splitter adapter, which you can then connect it to the dongle, and you have a separate power charging cable at the same time. Just keep in mind, all this caveat is for an iPhone user. I mean, if you have an Android, you'll most likely be fine unless you're driving something very difficult to drive off DSD256. Otherwise, on DSD64, you're fine. Now, what happens when you use an iPhone and go all the way to DSD256 and have something difficult to drive is that you get a stuttering sound. I got the stuttering sound. I just thought it's worth mentioning. But on switching to my iPad, there was no stuttering, and it was just a phenomenal sounding device. Beautiful sounding device. Okay, in the box, you get this. You do not get this. I bought this separately. I apologize. What you get is this USB-C to USB-C OTG. You do not get this lighting cable, which I got separately from Cayin. And you get this adapter. And pretty minimal, guys. I have not opened this yet. Never be the same again. I mean, Cayin devices are fantastic. I do like Cayin devices a lot. So that's for unboxing, and now you have a sense of drivability and what you ought to drive it with, which is critical, I think. What about the sound? Well, in short, I want to say, and this is something I was talking to Andy Kong about of Cayin, that the sound here is, I'm not going to mince words, spectacular. It is a spectacular sound, guys. Now, why is this so spectacular? I think, first and foremost, it's very spacious, guys. I mean, you don't think you're listening to a dongle when you're listening to this. So the Kinera Norns are quite spacious sounding to start with for their price point of $500. So last night, I was doing a bunch of things. I was multitasking, and I was reading a bunch of things. And I was listening to the Cayin with the Norns off my iPad. And I love those moments when you forget what tracks are being played, because you just like every track that comes your way. And I was using Tidal and just track after track, and I was just listening until I got a significant battery drain from my iPad, because this does drain battery. And so I was just lost in music for about 45 minutes, guys, without sort of noticing the treble harshness here or anything, because these two have paired really well, if that matters to you. But overall, it's a wonderful sound. A lot of people like to talk about how R2R sounds analog. And so I've heard, let's say, more analogish sounds, right? Because I've owned the Holo Audio level 3 DAC for about 3 years, and that was my favorite DAC. And I've also owned a bunch of Denner Phipps DACs. Of course, I'm comparing, double chassis, desktop size DACs with something as small as this. But it does sound R2R. I do think I've heard DACs that sound more R2R, meaning more analog. And by that, I don't mean this is more digital sounding. This is still on the warmer side on DSD64. But on DSD256, it does begin to sound more incisive. It doesn't at any point sound digital or Delta Sigma, but it is more incisive. And I guess I associate a certain level of laid backness with R2R sounds, which it does give you a bit of on DSD64. So overall, I want to say this is like a neutral, warm sound, depending on your DSD mode, your sampling mode. And what really I think is the party trick of this is that it's very spacious sounding. It doesn't sound like a dongle, guys, which is basically the point I'm trying to make. It sounds so spacious and so wide that it doesn't sound like a dongle. you can get away with this and not need a DAP this might beat out a lot of entry level and even mid tier DAPs, I think, in overall sound performance, technically speaking. Resolution is not lacking. Like, I don't think it's as resolving as, let's say, the N8 Mark II, and that is a pretty evident sort of difference. But this, of course, is pretty expensive. This is $3,600 or so. But for its price, you don't feel like you're missing nuances and finer details and like micro level signals in the music, because resolution here is covered very, very well. Other aspects of technical performance, like let's say layering is decent, slam and dynamics are decent, transit speed is decent, bass overall is very satisfying, mid-range is natural, treble is not overly bright or rolled off. So super sonically, spectacular even for its price point and for its sort of form factor. Spectacular, I think, is definitely a term that it merits. Now, to compare it with my previous favorite DAC amp dongle, which was the Lotu PAW S2, which I like a lot, I do feel like the Lotu PAW and the Cayin sound very different. This sounds wider, this sounds deeper. Now, the soundstage difference in presentation is very noticeable, because this, with my Noble Sultans, like, can take the stage really far back, and that is very impressive in how it does that. Resolution-wise, I think they're comparable. But this has a wider staging, guys. The RU7 is a wider staging, and I really enjoyed my Noble of both these DAC amps, dongles, and it was just lovely, guys. Odins were another phenomenal pairing with this guy. Odin was not... So I got the most amount of stuttering of my iPhone, this sort of stuttering sound with my Odins, and I think it's because it's low impedance. So a low impedance, a super low impedance IEM like the Odins off this sort of high current draw dongle, especially off its 4.4 plugged into your iPhone, will cause your iPhone to stutter. That is not an ideal combination. I just thought I'd mention that. But however, when I shifted from my iPhone to my iPad and driving the Odins off my Cayin RU7, it was just an insane treat, guys. It was an insane treat. I don't listen to Korn a lot. It's just a whole bunch of things I have here. But yeah, I do listen to a wide variety of genres. So the Odins, I think, with my iPad were just a phenomenal experience. I would say this drove the Odins to about 90% of its performance, its resolution, and overall staging with great timbre. It was just a masterclass of an experience. So all these IEMs are driven well and driven nicely and synergizes well, whether it's the Norn, whether it's the expensive Odin, or whether it's the Noble Audio Sultans. Love it. It will, of course, like I said, not be able to sort of demonstrate the level of technical proficiency that a DAP like the Cayin N8 Mark II can. And I do think the Aroma Audio Air, which is slightly more expensive, is going to provide you a little more nuance in the music, a little more sort of micro nuances and micro sort of dynamics, like little inflections in a singer's voice, etc. It's just slightly more prominent here, with slightly more bass detail as well. But I'm nitpicking. There's not a massive difference between the two, which you're seeing a lot, because this is a very, very small device. Very exploratory, very innovative. Thumbs up to Cayin for extreme innovation. These guys innovate at the speed of light. Innovate, test, bring to market all these exciting products. Andy Kong is a champion. A big shout out to Andy for getting this out to me so quickly, and also for answering my questions about this, because I had a lot of questions about this drivability, because this does draw current. Guys, if you have an Android phone, go for this. If you'd like to drive, listen to music off your iPad or any tablet PC, go for this. Or if you want sort of an endgame DAC amp dongle and you just want to use your PC, go for this. Sonically, this is spectacular, guys. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's how I feel. So that's it for the review, guys. I hope this was interesting and useful. And if you have further comments or questions, do feel free to engage me on my channel through my comments on this video. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.